So now we want to get the Pokemon. So let's now build this component in the render function. So we want to return the actual component JSX code. And before we return the JSX code, we want to get the Pokemon from state. So we're going to do const Pokemon, and we are simply using object destructuring to get the Pokemon from state. And now that we have got the Pokemon from state, we want to check if that Pokemon is not null. So we're just going to do if Pokemon, and then we can now return our JSX code, because the whole JSX code depends on the Pokemon object. If it's null, then there's no point returning anything. Actually, we should return null. So if it's else, we should return null. Actually, we should return circular progress if it's null, because that means it's still loading. And it should be imported from material UI core. Now let's design this component. So we're going to have so let's get the details from the Pokemon now. So before we return this component, we want to do const, and let's get the name, for example, now from the Pokemon. And now let's return a box. We'll use the box element from the material UI library. And inside that box, we want to have another box. And now this box, we need to give it some styling as well. So we need to now implement the styles for this component. So to do this, we're going to be using the with styles function that will allow us to connect. So let's define styles first. Let's just do it like how we usually do it. So const styles, and then the styles will have a theme being passed, because when we connect the with style, it will make sense in a minute actually. So now we're going to implement the arrow function, which will return a style sheet object. And inside this, let's do, for example, let's have the first style, which is going to be for the Pokedex container. So we're going to do Pokedex container over here, and we're going to give it a height of 80 VH and a background color of black for now. And now we want to connect the styles and pass it into our Pokemon details component. To do this, we need to use the with styles function, and this with styles function is provided to us in the material UI library. So we need to go down over here. We need to remove the export defaults. We just need to do class. So we need to remove the export defaults, and now over here at the end of this file, let's do export defaults, and now we want to use the with styles function, and we need to so when we click on it, so VS Code has found it and it has imported it for us from material UI library. So now we need to pass in the styles that we have made with the styles, and now we need to connect the with styles function to our Pokemon details class. And what this does, it will pass in the styles as props to the Pokemon details component. So it's slightly different to the functional component, because in the functional component we use the make styles function to make our styles, and in the Pokemon details we use the with styles and we passed it in as props. So now we can simply get the styles using the props, so we just have to do styles over here. And now we can use the styles. We can just do styles dot Pokedex details, for example. So let's give the box let's give this box class name, and we can now use styles.pokedex details. Pokedex container, sorry, not Pokedex details. So now we need to add more items inside this box so we can see how it looks, and then we will style the Pokedex container. So for now we will just leave the Pokedex container as it is, and now what we need to do is we need to have a title for the web page, and this title is going to be the Pokemon name. So what we're going to use the typography element, And for this typography element, we're going to set it, it's going to import it from the library, and we're going to give it h1 variant. So we're going to do variant equal to h1 to make it into a h1 style element. And we also need to give it a class. So we're going to do classes dot text title. So we're going to do styles dot text title. Sorry, I said classes, I meant styles. And inside it, we're going to just show the Pokemon name. So as you know, we've got the name from the Pokemon, and we can just display it. And now let's see how that looks. As you can see, we are getting the Pokemon that we clicked on, which is Charmeleon. We need to style this now. So let's implement the text title for the typography element. So for this text title, what we want to do is we want to give it, want to make it capital, so we'll do uppercase. So we'll do text transform uppercase, and then capital C for uppercase. We also want to change the font family. We're going to call it font. We're going to use the fantasy fonts, and we want to use capital letter for fantasy fonts. Okay, now let's see how that looks. If we refresh, I mean, why didn't that do anything? It's meant to do something. So the issue is right over here. So first of all, we have an issue, and the issue is if we click on the styles, if we go to the top, we can see that we're referencing this, when in fact we are trying to use the with styles function to pass the styles as a prop, and the styles are going to be called classes. So to fix this, we need to remove the styles first of all, and now we need to get the classes from props, because just like I explained before, the with styles will take the styles and it will give it to our class components using props. But I have taken it as styles. That is wrong. It should have been called classes. So what I explained before was correct. It's just that the variable should be called classes and not styles. And now we can get the actual styles. And right over here now the screen is black. Let's just okay. So let's just keep it like that now. For the fonts, let's go to our fonts now. Font style. So before those styles weren't being applied to our web page, now that we have fixed the classes issue, they are being applied now. So if we look at the web page now, we can see that it's styled now, it's black. What we need to do is let's go back to our Pokedex container, and now let's give it some more classes so we can style it properly. So another class that we need to give it is the so the background color is already black. We need to now do color white, so the font color will be white. And now if we refresh, we can see that the font color is now being white, and it's also the font has been changed to fantasy. Now what we want to do is we also want to give it margin top, because it's the header is being overlaid on top of it, so we want to fix that. So we want to just do margin top of 75 pixels, and that should offset it and bring it down. Okay. Another thing that we need to do is we want to do text align center to center everything, to center the actual Pokedex container. And we also want to do border radius 5 pixels, because the edges are very sharp, so we want to give it some border radius. Also, I just need to correct myself. Text align center will center the actual text inside it. Yeah, I said it centers the container, but no, it actually centers the text inside it. The border radius, as you can see now, is curved. And what else shall we do? We also want to give it a padding top of 30, because that text is stuck to the top. So now we have some spacing between the text and the top of the component. Okay. Also want to give the height 84 VH. Okay, now it's laid out very nicely. We can continue on to our next element. So after we have done the typography, we want to now do the image of the Pokemon. So we want to show the image of the Pokemon. So to do this, we're just going to use the image element, img element. And for this element, we want to apply a style to it as well. So we'll do class name, and we will use an image Pokemon class, image Pokemon. we'll call it Pokemon image actually. And now we can implement the style inside the styles section. And for this Pokemon image, we will do, we're just going to give it a width of, actually no, we'll just give it a width and a height. And it's going to be a square image of 160 pixels width and height. So width 170 pixels and a height of 170 pixels. And let's see how that looks. Okay, so we can see a square because we haven't passed in the actual image source. So what we need to do now is pass in the source, which is src. We just use the src, and then we pass in the actual image URL for the Pokemon. So what we want to do now is we want to get the sprite from the image, from the Pokemon, sorry. So from the sprites now we can use a specific image, which is the front view of the Pokemon. So we can do sprites.front default, and that will give us the front view of the Pokemon. And as you can see, the Charmeleon is loaded now. So the sprites property from the Pokemon, it has a few other alternatives as well. So if we let's console.log the sprites to see what other options we have. If we inspect element now, we go to console, we can see that we have this object, and we have a back default view, we have a back female, a back shiny. So let's try a back shiny, for example. Let's see how that looks. Just copy and paste back shiny, or we'll type it in. And as you can see, it gives us a shiny version of this Pokemon from the back view. If we do front default, we're just going to stick to the front default for now. We can apply a few more images if we want to. We can do like a row, but for now we'll just do one image. Okay, after we have done this image, we can now do the actual details of this Pokemon. So the specifications of the Pokemon. So to do this, we want to have a container for this detail section, and we're going to use the box element as well. We're going to make a new box element after the image, and for this box element we're going to also give it a style. So we're going to do class name, and we're going to call this a Pokemon info container class. So we're going to do classes.Pokemon info container. And now let's go to our style section and implement this Pokemon info container class. So for this Pokemon info container, we want to stick it to the bottom, because we want it to be stuck to the bottom of this web page. So it's laid out very nicely. We can just do 60 above the bottom. So we just have to do bottom 60, and that should pretty much give us 60 pixels above the bottom. And we also want to do position absolute, so that it's laid out regardless of the other elements. Because if we have relative positioning, then it will be laid out after the element before it. And with absolute positioning, we can style it how we want, and we can position it how we want. So just to show you how this element is displayed on the screen, we're going to give it a background color of blue, just to demonstrate of how it will be displayed. And we also want to give it a height and a width as well. So we're just going to do width 1000 and a height of 300. 200 will do 200. And now let's see. As you can see, we have this 60 pixels above the bottom, and it's laid out like that. Now we can use this as a container. Let's keep the background color for now. Actually, we don't need it. We'll keep it in for the time being, and then we can remove it later. Now we want to add the actual specifications of the Pokemon inside this info container. So to do this, we want to have a HR first of all. So we want to show a separation line between the info container and the image and title. So to do this, we're just going to use a HR, and for this HR, we're going to give it a class name as well. So we're going to apply some styling for this line. So let's see how it looks before we actually style it. Okay, because we just remove this class name for now. Okay, it's not showing because it's black. Black on black doesn't show. What we need to do is give it a style. So we'll do class name, and then equals classes dot what should we call it? Let's call it separator. Dot separator. And now let's implement the style inside the style section. And for the separator, we want to give it a height of 0.01 millimeter because we want it to be very thin. And we want it to take up 95% of the width. And now let's see how it looks. I believe the issue, well, still not showing. So the issue isn't because the background is black. The issue is because the container of this HR separator, that container doesn't have a width because we removed it. I mean, I did demonstrate the background color, but then I removed it. So let's give it now a width of 100%. And as you can see, we can see this separator now. And we can remove the background color now. We don't need it. And after that, after the HR, we are going to, let me see, we're going to do a grid container. So after the HR, let's make a new element called grid container, and this grid container is going to contain the specification of the Pokemon. So that way we can show the name of the Pokemon, the height, the weight, and the type of the Pokemon. So let's go ahead and do this grid container, and so we're going to use a grid element, and we're going to pass in container property to indicate that's a container. And inside this we're going to have grid items. And for this grid item we want to do md equals 1, so we're going to pass in the item prop so that it's an item, and we will also pass in md is equal to 1 so that on medium devices each of these items, each of these properties is going to take 1 slot, because we have 12 slots, and on medium devices and above is going to take 1 slot. Now after that, what we want to do is we want to have a button, which is going to be the favorite button, so we can favorite this Pokemon. I will apply the method for this button later, because we're going to connect this button to Redux. So when we click on this favorite button, we will add the Pokemon to a list of favorite Pokemons inside our Redux. We will do that in the end. But for now, we'll just have this button with the icon inside it. So we're going to do classes. We're going to apply a style to this button as well. We're going to do class name equals classes.favButton. Just call it favorites. .favorites. And now let's implement this style inside our sections, inside our style section. And for this favorite button, we want to give it a height of 50 pixels and a width of 100 pixels. And we also want to give it a margin of 15 pixels, margin top of 15 pixels. Now after this button, we also want to give it an icon as well. So let's give it an icon. So we need to now import the favorites icon so we can actually use it. We do this in the top, import favorites icon from material UI core, from material UI icons library that we installed in the beginning. And now we can also do /favorite to get the favorites icon. And if we now use this favorites icon inside this button, and we also need to set the color as well for it. So let's do style. For now, let's just give it white color. So we'll do style. And now let's see how that looks. As you can see, it's showing right here. So what we want to do is we want to also check later if the Pokemon is added to the list of favorites, then we want to show this as red icon, because that means it's already been favorited. And if it's not in the list of favorites, we want to make it white so the user can click on it and make it red. Okay, what we want to do now is we want to, let's make it bigger as well. So we'll do font size like 25, and let's see if that is, well, no, much more we need. I would say 35, yeah. Yeah, that's much better, or 40. Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, we'll do 45. Yeah, 50, okay, let's try 50. Yeah, that's much better now. So what we want to do now is change this to, actually we won't change this into a style, we'll just keep it like that because we're not going to be reusing the style. And we also need to make the color dynamic, so we'll just keep the style in this, just like how it is. So after this button that we have just implemented, now we want to have the other details of this Pokemon, such as the name, and after the name we're going to have like the height, the weight, and the type. So now let's do the name. So after the button, we're going to do a grid item, and this grid item, we want it to be an item, so we'll pass on the item property, and we also want it to take 2 slots for medium and bigger devices. Now after that, we want to add the name inside this grid item. So basically what we're doing now, we're adding grid items inside this grid. So we're going to have a column full of, so if we go to the browser just to demonstrate, so we're going to have this column filled up with grid items. So each grid item is going to be put in next to the other, just to explain it basically, yeah. Now for this grid item that we have just done, we want to add text inside it, so we're going to use the typography element. And typography element, we want to use classes.text, and let me see, I believe, do we have a text? If we go to the top, let's see if we have a text. No, we'll do add text over here. For this style, we're just going to give it a font size, really. That's it, just font size of 30 pixels. And now let's continue. We haven't given it any text, so let's add the Pokemon name. So we just do name, and we have name taking from Pokemon over here. So that's where the name is coming from, and it's showing it to us right now. And let's see. So what we want to do is, well, we want to give a label for this name. So we want to say, because some people might not know what Venezuela, well, says it on top, but we want to have a label on top of this called name. So it knows that this is the name, that is the weight, that is the height. So right before this name, we're going to do height. We're going to do name, and then we're going to do a break line as well, capital N. We're going to do a BR, so that we can go on the next line, and then we'll give it the actual name. And then we'll do just like what we've done before, name, passing the name variable. And now, as you can see, we have the name label and the name of the Pokemon. After this, we want to make another grid item, just like what we've done for this one. We can even copy and paste it. And instead of name, we're going to change it to height. And then we also want to have a break line, just like what we have. And after the break line, we want to have height. We want to say, we want to pass in, the height here. We also need to retrieve the height variable from the Pokemon. So this height property needs to be taken from Pokemon, so we can use it. And after that, we also want to say, we want to have a M next to it. So that means it's in meters. So the height is in meters. And now let's see how that looks. Yep. So we have this Pokemon, and the height is 20 meters. Now after this, we want to do the weight as well, just like what we've done for the height. We can copy and paste it, and we can do the weight. And we also need to use the weight property as well over here, which we also need to get the weight property from the Pokemon object using object destructuring. Now we also need to specify that it is in kilograms, so we'll do kg as well. And now let's see how that looks. So we have the weight, 1000 kg. Okay. After the weight, we have finally the type. So we need to show the types of this Pokemon, because a Pokemon can have many types. So to do this, we're going to use the map function. So we're just going to use the JS expression. Let's copy and paste the weight, and then we'll remove it for now. We'll do types dot map. We need to get the types property from the Pokemon as well, so make sure you do that. That was automatically imported, which is wrong. I believe it's we can continue now. So we just want to do types dot map, and it will give us each type for that Pokemon. So we'll have type, and then we can now get the name of the type. So we can do const name. Instead of type, let's change it to Pokemon type. And we're going to do const name. We get the name of this. We're going to get the name property from the type, and we'll do equals Pokemon type dot type. Right over here, just to show you the object of Pokemon type, let's console.log it right over here. And let's head over to our browser to see how that looks. So we have the type over here, we have 2 slots. And if we click on the type, so each Pokemon type also has a type inside it to specify the details of the type. And we have the name and URL as well. Now that we have the type, we just need the name of the type. So now that we have the name of the type, we can return another grid item. So right over here we have a small mistake. We have a grid item right over here wrapping around the map function, which is not correct. We want to return a grid item for each type. So what we need to do is we need to remove the wrapper, and now we can copy paste the grid item for the weight, and we can return it inside the type in the maps. We're using this just as a template. Now we can modify it and make it specific. So for the typography, we want to now put in the type instead of the weight, and we need to also now use the name of the type that we have retrieved. And now we can just that should be it basically. Let's see, we just need the break line. I believe we already have it. Yep, we have type poison, and so this Pokemon has 2 types, poison type and a grass type. So just to summarize for these types, we are mapping over the types of this Pokemon, and this Pokemon has 2 types. And then for each type, we will get the name of that type, and we will return a grid item, just like what we've done for the weight and the height and the name. We return this grid item, and we put in the type, which is the label for it, and the actual type, and the name of the type as well. So that basically sums it up.